You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. This is Making Tracks. Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
It's not true. That's impossible.
You're listening to Making Tracks. This is episode 151. I'm Mark Newbold, and joining me today is a man who has done more troops than the Rancor has had hot Gamorreans. Mark, how you doing?
I'm very well, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. It's busy, and we've finished reaction chats, and now we can get back to doing regular episodes of Making Tracks on Tuesday night so people know exactly where they are on the run up to Christmas. Life is good.
Life is good. Star Wars is good. Can't complain.
It's going to be weird getting back into doing a regular show because we haven't done one for seemingly ages.
It does feel like a long time.
It does, doesn't it? There's loads to talk about. There's plenty of news knocking about, not just Andor stuff, but other stuff. We have a guest on this episode. It's Paul Jerricho, who played the AT-AT driver in The Empire Strikes Back. First things first, I'm going to ask you a question that you normally ask me. Have you had any cool stuff coming to your collection lately?
Yes, I have. So much cool stuff. So the Rebel Legion was invited by the 51st UK Garrison to a event at Pinewood Studios. It was called the Futures Festival, which is a careers festival for the film industry to try and bring up the next generation of filmmakers, not necessarily directors or actors, all the kind of roles that people don't think about and just take for granted, like carpenters, lighting, everything else like that. So I got some swag from that because the lovely people over at Industrial Light and Magic London were there, and they had a really nice spread of stuff that they were just giving away. So got key rings and badges and everything else, all ILM branded. So got that, taking advantage of the old Black Friday sales or the early Black Friday sales, and I picked up the Trapper Wolf Black Series helmet for just under half price actually. So loads of other bits and bobs. Since we last spoke anyway, the prototype retro Luke Skywalker figure, he's arrived, and my Black Series Boba Fett in disguise, that's arrived. Admiral Akbar 40th anniversary Black Series carded figures arrived. So lots of little bits and bobs to clutter up my desk and make it really difficult to try and record an episode of Making Tracks. How about yourself?
Well, I've had a few bits. I'm trying to think what the last stuff I would have had would be since we last asked the question, because like you say, we've been doing all these reaction chats since New York Comic Con, which was early October, and it's nearly December. I had the Gentle Giant Jumbo Darth Vader, which is really nice, the Quarry style one, which is gorgeous. A few other bits and bobs, a few books have come, some of the Essential Legends collection books have come, which would be nice to have a flick through and sort of reacquaint myself with those. Plus they look gorgeous on the shelves, although I've got to say, Del Rey, the size of the books in the UK and the size of the books in the States are different, and it drives me mad because I've got a mixture and I don't want to buy them twice. Why can't there be a uniformity of size on those books? I don't know. But anyway, it's a small grumble. One of the things I collect are the crew badges and crew pins. I've been lucky enough to get so far all the pins from Force Awakens onwards.
Nice.
Including Mando Seasons 1 and 2 and Book of Boba Fett. This weekend, I managed to acquire the pins for Obi-Wan Kenobi and Season 1 of Andor. So really chuffed with those. They're on their way. I mean, I like them because they're small. Totally get what you're saying about space. It's the worst. So I'm having a rethink in the top room. So I've been sorting all my comics. I had a massive turnaround on my comics and sorted them all out, got them packed away and rejigged them. So all the ongoing titles are in one box. The minis are in another. That was the find of the century. I forgot, this is typical me, I'd got literally a box with about 60 vintage figures in it that I'd completely forgotten about. They're all duplicates.
Yeah.
So there's stuff from Star Wars Empire Jedi, card backs. I found a wodge of about 30 card backs. So I sorted out the ones that I wanted to keep, and all the duplicate card backs and figures I've put to one side. And funny enough, Farthest From is back. It's the 10th and 11th of December, Saturday and Sunday. It's down at the Town Hall in Fordingbridge. It's a show that we love. We always go to it. I think it's the 23rd or 24th running. I should know this. 23rd or 24th live in the room running. They've had a couple of online ones with the pandemic and such. On the Saturday, it's a general family fun day. On the Saturday night, it's the meal. On the Sunday, it's Farthest From. Farthest From is quite rightly, in the Star Wars collector community, a bit legendary because you find stuff there that you just don't find anywhere else. And the first couple of hours of Farthest From on the Sunday is the most bonkers, nuts, monster mash of people you can possibly imagine. Great, great fun. I'm going down for that show. Can't wait to get down there because it's been ages. I'm really looking forward to it. Have you got any events lined up coming up soon?
So Rebel Legion's been invited by Dave. I've extended that invite over to the UK Garrison, so hopefully there'll be some people there on the Saturday.
Early bird tickets are available. Early bird entry is 11 till 12. General entry is 12 till 4. It's a packed day, but it's awesome fun. Dave does an auction, Dave Tree, former co-host of Making Tracks, does an auction on the evening or later in the day. As I say, the meal is great fun. There's usually guests. I don't know any word of guests yet, but I know Dave and the team are working on that. So it'll be a great show. And hopefully, with all things being equal, we'll get back to the old system of having at least 2, if not 3 Farthest Froms a year. It's always a nice trip down to the New Forest. It's always a nice place to go.
Hey, this is Lauren Mary Kim, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
On the topic of live events and conventions, Star Wars Celebration is coming to the XL next April 7th to the 10th. Just before then, on the Thursday night, on the 6th, is Boonta Eve 4. It's coming to Europe. It's happened in the States. Never come over here before. It's the first chance they've had to bring the event to the UK. It's taking place at the Breakfast Club. What a great place to hold an event. At the Breakfast Club in Canary Wharf, which is not far from the XL. They've already announced that the tickets are £30. There's some swag in the bag. And one of the things that's swaggable, is that even a word? It is now, a small Princess Leia pin done like a British stamp. And it looks fantastic. Because you're busy. We're both busy. We've both got stuff going on. But are you planning on doing any of these evening events?
Well, I could try. Over Star Wars Celebration 2023 is going to be just a little bit busy, I think, for myself. And anybody who's ever been to Celebration, they all have a list of, I want to go there, I want to do that. And actually, it's like, how many things can get in the way? Or shall I say, happy diversions get in the way, which means that you don't actually end up where you initially intended to go. And obviously, there's only 250 tickets, so it's not a huge amount.
There's not.
3 p.m. to 11 p.m, I'm going to be setting up the Rebel Legion celebration booth.
You'll be Rebel wrangling. I'll be Fantha following. We'll be doing stuff all over the place. As you say, it's 3 till 11 for older folks, 3 till 8 for anyone, that's kids. Something they do called Older Aren't Idle, which is a karaoke competition.
I want to say competitions. I mean, when I'm in front of a mic, there's definitely no competition.
Also, you also have the fantastic announcement of Cantina 2. Anybody who went to Celebration in 2016, which had Darth Elvis of the Imperials, Blues Harvest with David Collins, and Luther Ingo Star Cruiser, otherwise known as Ash, headlining the event. Celebration 2023 will see the return of Cantina. It's not had any details announced other than it's happening. Nothing's been announced, but Celebration will see the return of Cantina. Being a music guy, I assume we're going to try and get to that one.
Yeah, well, I plan to, because it's on a Sunday. Because last time I missed out on the first hashtag Cantina because I was in the middle of the Rebel Legion build-up for Celebration Europe 3. I don't think we left the XL Centre till about 9 o'clock that night, and then we went straight over to one of the Foxes for like a meet and greet with all the European members and stuff, so didn't get a chance. But this is going to be taking place on the Sunday, so Celebration will be in full swing. And also the O2 is only a short cable car ride from the XL, so it's nice and close. Definitely sounds like it's going to be well worth it, because there's going to be some awesome bands on.
Yes, there is. They've not announced anything. We know nothing. April the 9th, Sunday, as Mark says, London O2 Indigo, couple of stops on the tube, get the cable car across. That's the way I did it last time. Or if you really fancy some fresh air, it's probably about a half-hour walk, give or take. Whatever you do, however you get there, take your freighter, just park in the parking lot. It'll be great. It'll be an awesome night. The last one was fantastic. Loads of guests there, loads of familiar faces. I met so many people at that last one. Can't wait to bring you more information. We'll bring it to Fantha Tracks on the site. We'll put it on our socials. We'll also talk about it here on Making Tracks. More news about Boonta Eve 4, about Cantina 2, any other events that are happening, and there are other events happening.
Hi, this is Tamara Carlson-Woodard. I work on the Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
We don't yet have a title, but Indiana Jones 5 comes to us on the 30th of June 2023, and James Mangold has been talking to Empire magazine about a number of elements from the film, one of which was that we will open the film with a de-aged Indiana Jones circa 1945, and here's what Mangold had to say. He said, I wanted the chance to dive into this kind of full-on George and Stephen old picture and give the audience an adrenaline blast. And then we fall out and you find yourself in 1969 so that the audience doesn't experience the change between the 40s and the 60s as an intellectual conceit, but literally experience the buccaneering spirit of those early days and then the beginning of now. So it sounds a bit like the opening of Last Crusade when we went from the the young River Phoenix Indy punch and the Cross of Coronado sequence on the boat at the start of Last Crusade. We've got Harrison, who's in real life 80 years old now, playing Indy, who in story terms, I think Indy's 70 and Harrison's 80. Do you think that's a good idea? It feels like a tease, but it sets us up for the film.
Yeah, no, it sounds perfect, doesn't it? Spielberg and especially George always wanted Indiana Jones to be like their kind of James Bond, didn't they? To kind of have that kind of adventure. You know, you get that with their cold opening teasers before the titles and stuff. So this is fantastic. And also, what a great way to return to the big screen after, 15 years? Yeah, since Crystal Skulls. So that's perfect. And to see Indy in his prime, I'm sure there's going to be some amazing use of de-aging technology and sleight of hand, shall we say, and body doubles to achieve that. But hey, who cares? As long as it looks good on the screen and we're all kind of sucked in, I'm right there and I'm going to be there opening day. I guarantee it.
Honorary Panther Tracks member Kathleen Kennedy talks about this. She says, my hope is that although it will be talked about in terms of technology, so she understands that we're going to talk about the tech, you'll just watch it and go, oh my God, they just found footage. This was a thing they shot 40 years ago. We're dropping you into an adventure, something Indy is looking for, and instantly you have that feeling, I'm in an Indiana Jones movie. So she's totally teeing us up for what we've just said, that we're going to get something that's really special, really going to feel that old school, Paramount old school Indy. And then finally, Ford himself. It's the first time I've seen it where I believe it. It's a little spooky. I don't think I even want to know how it works, but it works. It doesn't make me want to be young, though. I'm glad to have earned my age. So classic Grouchy Ford. The thought of seeing Indy, not only contemporary Indy, 1969, that man's just landed on the moon. Mm-hmm. It's a new world. The music's changed. All these things have changed. Harrison Ford used to be a roadie for the Doors, and the Doors were up and running in 1969.
Yeah.
If there isn't a Doors joke in this film, I will be very disappointed. I'm just super excited for this. You feeling that same excitement?
Come on, this is going to be really exciting. He is one of those characters you can put in the same breath as James Bond when it comes to just sheer adventure. So I'm really excited just to see what they can do. And Harrison's age be damned as far as I'm concerned, because as long as it looks good and the story's good, it doesn't matter. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do with 1969. As you said, moon landing and stuff like that is a tie-in. We had aliens last time. Could Indy be going into space? Could he somehow find his way onto the moon and he's there searching for some long-lost hidden treasure that has somehow found its way onto the moon? Who knows? I mean, the possibilities are endless.
They have said that Indy is no longer a professor, so he's not tied to the college. He's an older man now, and they tackle that very much head on. We also had news recently of rumours of an Indiana Jones TV series. So I'm very open for that, because over the years we've had different actors play Indy. Of course, Ford is your prime Indy, but George C. Hall played the old Indy, and Sean Patrick Flannery played young Indy, and Corey, I forget the kid's name, played the really young Indy, and River Phoenix. You've had other actors play Indy to build up the whole, which is the case with Darth Vader. It's the case with a lot of characters, and your beloved James Bond has had how many people play Bond over the years? 7, is it?
7, yeah.
It can work. Would you be excited to see an Indy series, given that we've now got ILM can do visual effects on the scale that we've seen in Andor, Mando, Book of Boba, everything else? I think there's scope in that.
Completely. It's that difficult thing, isn't it? And it raises the whole question about, the character being bigger than the actor. When you can clearly delineate the difference between a character's age and the actor's age, and can say, well, look, there's no way if we wanted to do an Indy set in the prime of his life, shall we say, it's not going to be easy to do and cost effective to do with Harrison Ford, considering all the de-aging you need to do on that. But I think storytellers change, directors change, and I think if you want to keep these characters alive, then potentially that's what you're going to have to do. However, that being said, it doesn't need to necessarily focus on Indiana Jones. There's new characters in this film, like Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, for example.
Yeah.
Maybe it focuses on her. Maybe it's a spin-off about her and could spin off into something completely different. There's so many possibilities. They greenlight this film, and they're like thinking, how can we then build on that? If Indy's either going to die or pass the torch, is it going to be to somebody younger, or is it going to be somebody of like a similar age to who Harrison Ford was in Raiders of the Lost Ark? It would be short-sighted, I think, just to kind of go, right, that's it. It stops with Harrison. If there's stories out there that need to be told, then let's tell them.
It's a bit like Andor, isn't it? Andor is the focal character of the series, Star Wars Andor, but as we've watched those 12 episodes, we've realised that all these other characters around it are equally as interesting. Some are actually more integral to the wider plot than Cassian is. Mon Mothma, you could argue,
Yeah,
is.
absolutely.
And certain other. So I think there's scope to do something. Maybe Lucasfilm have looked at the world of Indiana Jones and thought, well, Indy's important, but what about Marion? What about Abner? What about Marcus? What about Salah? I'm well up for more Indy. And Willow as well, another Lucasfilm production.
Yep.
That launches on the 30th of November on Disney+. I was fortunate enough to go to a special screening, saw the first 2 episodes. It was huge fun, really charming. The cast were brilliant. The chemistry is just bubbling off the screen. The visuals are really nice. And please pay attention to the music, because the music was excellent. More fun than I thought it had any right to be, let's put it that way.
Hello, I'm Warwick Davis, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Saturday the 5th of November saw myself and Start Your Engines co-host Paul Naylor travel down to Croydon for Croydon Star Wars weekend. We went with a friend of ours, Jonathan Hipkiss. We had a great day. It was fantastic fun. Loads of guests there. We spoke to many of them, and the first person we spoke to was Paul Jerricho. Paul was an AT-AT driver in The Empire Strikes Back. So this is myself and Paul Naylor having a quick catch-up with Paul Jerricho from The Empire Strikes Back.
We're here in Croydon. It's a wonderful signing event that we have been to before, haven't we, Paul?
We certainly have.
And we're here again through the driving rain, and I'm here with Paul Jerricho. Paul, how is your day going so far?
Yeah, it's going really well. I mean, this is the first time I've done a signing in Croydon, and it's an experience. As signings always are. It's fantastic. You just meet amazing people. You know, anybody who's really interested in something like this, well, they've got to be okay people, haven't they? Really, yes.
We as old hands would like to think so. Empire Strikes Back, it's 42 years ago now. I'm assuming you filmed it 43 years ago. I'm assuming you filmed in 79.
I'm absolutely right. And thanks for reminding me.
I know it's a long way back, but here we are, 40 years on, still talking about it. What are your memories of working on that show?
An uncomfortable costume, for starters. But you didn't really worry about that too much, to be honest. You just got on with it, really. Yeah. I mean, it was interesting because my costume, my head gear would steam up, so I couldn't really see what I was doing. But it was great to be part of a very important, iconic scene in this movie. Because, you know, that's the moment when I blow up the generator and basically change the course of history as far as Star Wars is concerned.
That's very true. A lot of people don't appreciate that battle that you were part of.
Yeah.
That's the one time, really, you see the rebels on the run.
Yeah.
Tail between the legs.
Certainly. And it's, you know, I mean, I think it makes Empire Strikes Back stand out against the other movies. You know, really.
That big battle right at the start of the film
rather
than at the end of the
Fantastic,
film.
Fantastic, what a great idea,
move.
you know, good idea, yeah.
Obviously you were aware of the success of the original Star Wars, so your expectations when you found out you were in The Empire Strikes Back, you probably thought...
Well, you know, the thing is, in
really
those days, you kind of thought about, you know, people tended to make, you know, they'd make an original and then there'd be, you know, Mark II. And that would be as far as things went. You know, it was really through things like Star Wars and Doctor Who, actually, you know, that it became an ongoing idea that, you know, we can just have, you know, make another and another and another. And the more that were made, the more it took off, basically, you know, and people just became completely involved with it, you know. And the idea of stopping it, you know, that's the thing, isn't it? How can you, it's like the James Bond stuff, you know, how could you possibly stop doing a James Bond movie? You can't do that. You can't.
Try and kick-start it again now, though, won't they?
Yeah, well, absolutely. You've got to start all over again, yeah. Or so, do we? We don't really know what happened.
That's true. I think they're going to go back to the 60s, personally. I think they're going to reboot it and do them all again. When you came into this then, obviously Star Wars had come out, it's 79, Star Wars is massive. It's only come out in the UK really in 78, so it's still fairly fresh, and here you are on the set of the new one.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts going into it? Were there any expectations?
No.
Sequels weren't a massive thing then, were they?
No, that's what I'm saying. You know, there were no expectations really. For me as an actor, it was another job that I was glad to be doing.
Yeah.
And then I'd be moving on. You know, I mean, you had no idea that any of this was going to come about. Incredible.
How many days were you involved?
3 days in all, yeah. People ask me why 3 days for such a short scene, really, and it's to do with giving the director having options of shots, taking loads of stuff, you know, and that's it, really. Yeah.
And did you work with Kirsch?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. What was he like to work with?
Looking at him through my steamy helmet, you know, it's hard to say, but he gave me the right notes.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Came across as a really nice chap.
Yeah. Fortunately, the other nice thing was that I already knew Ian Liston.
Right.
You know, which was, good to meet up with him. Yep.
You went on Crossroads as well, were you?
No, I never was in Crossroads, actually, you know. And at the time thinking, why aren't I in Crossroads? You know?
So look, 40 odd years on from doing that,
Yeah.
and of course other stuff as well.
Yeah.
But the focus, as it does with so many people, always stays on Star Wars.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy coming to events like this, reminiscing about stuff?
Without
meeting people?
doubt. I mean, it's very uniting. These conventions are very uniting.
Yes.
And you get a chance to meet up with old mates you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Mike, who's sitting behind me, I've known him for 30 years.
Wow.
And, through other channels. I mean, it's great. Yeah, absolutely. It's a family. It's a family. This is a Star Wars family, basically.
Yeah, you were saying to me before you've done some great theatre work as well.
Yes, theatre is my favourite. I think most actors will say, that you want that audience reaction. You want the live stimulation of what's going on, When you do a film or you do TV, you're very much in the hands of the director.
Yeah.
And he may choose, for instance, he may choose a take that you hated. And actually was not your best take. But you're out of your hands.
It's interesting you say that because there's an immediacy to theatre that it's there, the reaction's there, it's happening. You make a film, you're not going to see it for a year.
No, true.
Why
Absolutely.
is it, do you think, that Lucasfilm quite often picked stage actors for these kind of roles where your face is hidden, or why do you think that was?
Well, I think, stage actors, I think, really offer a kind of immediacy. Just to divert for a little, when I was doing this, when I was doing Doctor Who, we got very behind on the final shooting day, and the director came up to me and he said, "Paul, we're going to have to cut one of your scenes." I said, "Which one?" He said, he described it, and I said, "You can't do that. We've already shot either side of it."
Yeah.
And he went, "Oh, yeah, right." So we all went back into the studio, and this is what it's like working under pressure, okay?
Yeah.
We went back into the studio knowing that the plugs were going to be pulled at 10 o'clock. That's how the unions worked in those days.
Sure.
Pull the plug at 10 o'clock, that'd be it. So everybody had to be on the metal. Absolutely get it right first time. One take, and that'd be it. you know. The result of it was, when it came out on television, you could see the scenes that were, if you like, live television. Because there was an absolute immediacy to get it right.
Yeah.
Actors were not sitting back thinking, it doesn't matter if I get this wrong, I can do it again in a minute.
Yeah.
And everybody was on the case. There wasn't a booming shot, there wasn't a camera angle that was wrong. Everybody knew that it was important to get it right first time. So I always regard that as kind of bringing theatre to the television media and making it work, and that's how it works.
So going live without a net is naturally going to give that energy,
Absolutely,
isn't it?
without doubt.
So being
it does, without doubt.
It would be a lot more relaxing then, wouldn't it?
I've seen film actors on stage, and I've thought, I can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I can't hear what you're saying because they just haven't got the technique.
They're not projecting.
They're not projecting. They've been used to talking at this level, realistically, and it doesn't work.
No.
The other way around, it works. Actors doing film work and television, stage actors doing it works.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time.
It's a real pleasure.
I've never spoken to you before. I spoke to most, but I've never spoken to you, so I'm glad.
Okay.
I'm glad this happened.
Oh,
so.
listen, I've got loads of stories I can tell you, but I haven't got the time.
Maybe at the next show.
Maybe, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Thanks very much.
And thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
So for the last 10 weeks, we've enjoyed Star Wars Andor beaming into our houses on a Wednesday on Disney+. And that's now finished, sadly, for at least a couple of years whilst they start filming Season 2, which they have just done. But Tony Gilroy is definitely the man of the moment. He's talking about Andor left, right and centre. And one of those conversations was with the Hollywood Reporter, where in quite an extensive interview, he talked about many aspects of the show. They shot the Ferrix scenes all together. Now, of course, when film productions are done, they shoot everything out of sequence. But it struck me as interesting that Denise Gough and Kyle Soller both spoke about, basically, without saying what it was, the funeral sequence being one of the very first things they shot, a scene so key, and as you watch it, feels like, because it's supposed to, it feels like it's all done sequentially, but it turns out it was one of the very first things they did actually film. Obviously, that's not anything unusual, but as a layman who doesn't have a handle on that and doesn't have any kind of involvement in that, it always blows my mind that you can film a sequence like that funeral scene that's so pivotal at the front of a production.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that you have to obviously look at it from a logistical standpoint, isn't it? And if you've got a big set like they had for Ferrix, Can you remember, like, we talked about Ferrix before we knew it was Ferrix, when we just saw the shots from various websites and stuff who'd been down to a location was at Little Marlow. And the thing is, you just can't keep that kind of set up for the entirety of the time that you're shooting the series. You know, you have to schedule it and schedule everybody around it to kind of get all the shots that you think you need or that you do need in the can before you strike it. I suppose it must be really difficult from the actor's perspective, especially if you're filming something whereby you're getting the culmination of two characters' relationships, such as Miro's and Cyril's, because they've been on a journey. And how much of that do you let the actors know about? And how much do you not? Because you don't want to overburden them with lots of exposition just for them to be able to perform, but you need to be able to, as a director, skillfully convey what the emotion of that scene is without necessarily sometimes the context. And I think that's really difficult. And especially something like Andor, or actually any of the Star Wars TV shows where they have a rotating cast of directors in, it must be really difficult just to try and track all that. And I suppose that is where people such as Tony Gilroy take a even bigger role in making sure that actually the characters that they've written stay consistent throughout when they pass over from one story block to the next story block with a different director.
Considering that sequence was filmed first, let's say first, and the comparison I made, and there was a sort of a weird little reason. You see the Shankara stones in Luther and Rail's office, and I mentioned that when they made Temple of Doom, scene at the very end when they return to the village and everything's lush and green, everybody's happy, the kids come home and everyone's happy, and Indy puts the stones back in the little inset in the wall and it's happy ending, roll out to the credits, was actually one of the first things they shot. And then they weathered the set to make it look old and tired and then film those sequences. Not that the set was particularly altered for this, because they're blowing stuff up. So I guess there's bits they can blow bits up and then they can rebuild and it's as it should be. So maybe there's that. But filming that sequence first, there's a lot of bodies in that scene. I'm sure ILM would have populated the crowds further out. It's difficult to know exactly what's physical set and what's digital set, because there are obviously digital set extensions. As you said, we saw pictures, didn't we? We saw a good chunk of the ground and the lower sort of first story buildings. I'd be very curious to know what was added. I'm sure we'll get a Disney gallery soon. But just the thought of the emotional impact of what we saw last week and talked about on reaction chats and talked about in the group articles, to make that work so convincingly to us as an audience, but for the actors, it really says a lot for the actor's skill. And like you just said, for the director to know where they are in the story. Yeah, absolutely. It takes a lot of cognitive juggling as well, I think, for people to get that into their head. But that's where the actor needs to put their faith in the director and into the script writers to know it doesn't matter which scene you're shooting, what they're being told to emote and to act like is going to be consistent. And I'm sure there are conversations with these actors to give them an overall idea of the story arc of a character and at least their motivations. And, you know, motivations will be consistent throughout until a story beat happens when their perspective change or they have a change of heart. So on this topic, Tony Gilroy said, when you shoot a late season scene early, you don't want the actor to come to you 3 months later and say, well, I wish I'd known this. I would have done it differently. You don't want to hear that. I've heard that and it hurts. So I think that speaks to not only to the professionalism of Andor as a production, but just the broader topic of making sure that all the parts are understood and the actors know exactly what they're playing off. Because, like you say, I would imagine with something like Andor, especially with the main cast, the top-tier cast, and I think there's 190 speaking roles in Andor. So most of those roles, I don't know, 160 of those, I'll pick a number, of those roles will only see the script that they need to know, and that's what they say, and that's all they need to know. And then they're as surprised as we are when we see the show. A good chunk of the actors, you would imagine, would probably either be given most of the script or feel like they need to know most of the script. It's a lot to tie together, isn't it? Oh, it's a massive amount. And if you're going to be an actor in these big budget TV series, and in fact, even like low budget films, it's very rare. In fact, it's almost nigh impossible to shoot a whole film in sequence. Because also, you even have pickups, don't you? And so you have reshoots. You don't necessarily have them so much in TV shows, but at the same time, you still sometimes need them once you kind of get into the edit suite and there's something glaringly obvious that you need to now kind of fix. You have to go back and do that shoot. So I guess all you can do as an actor is just hope that you're given enough information and guidance by the directors and the screenwriters at that point in time to perform, and then it's down to you as the actor to try and find ways to link 6 months worth of acting together
in a more kind of consistent way. And I suppose that is the beauty of the craft.
I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, and you are following Fantha Tracks.
Rian Johnson, he has his Knives Out sequel, Glass Onion, in cinemas now, coming to Netflix very, very, very soon. It's getting rave reviews and great notices. In and amongst the press and the hype for Glass Onion, people are asking him about Star Wars. The Hollywood Reporter, one of the very first ones to get there, and they do ask him about the possibility of more Star Wars. Before we dive into it, I shall read the quote. Hollywood Reporter say, now that you're creating TV and Lucasfilm is very aggressively pursuing series, is there a Star Wars series you'd like to make? And Ryan says, I would do a Star Wars anything. And if I had an idea that I was excited about that worked better as a show than a movie, I'd do it that way. So he's very clear that the TV option is very much open to him. And just as a quick aside, Bob Iger's coming back. Bob Chapek's just left. Chapek rolled the dice on Disney+. From a business point of view, it sounds like that might not have been the best option, especially as cinemas are coming back to full strength now. We've just got Black Panther just making silly money. It's probably going to hit $1 billion again like the previous one did. We've got Avatar coming next month. That's going to do silly money. So cinema, again, is probably where it's at. Do you think Rian Johnson doing a TV series, a longer form story, would work better for him than doing a single movie or a trilogy or either or both? What do you think?
It's kind of as he says it, really, isn't it? It depends on the story or the idea that he comes up with. If Kathy kind of thinks there's a vehicle for him that is going to be perfect for him, they'll give him a call. So that's fair enough. I saw Glass Onions on Friday and I thought it was awesome. I'm a big fan of Knives Out. It's good fun. Yeah, very much kind of his irreverent writing style, but it's beautifully shot as well. And it's the same team as he did use for The Last Jedi, which, to be fair, if you speak to a lot of people in the industry, will kind of say, actually, The Last Jedi is one of the best Star Wars films in terms of how it's been put together, how it's been shot, how it's composed, how it's constructed. That is the skill and the touch that comes when you bring Rian Johnson. Interesting to note that obviously Glass Onions is meant to only be out in the cinema for 1 week and then it goes on to Netflix, which is quite an interesting decision when you think about it, because as you bring up Bob Iger, is the focus going to be bringing people back onto movie theatres? If that's the case, well then this idea for Netflix is a bit of a gamble. It's got Netflix written all over it. However, you do wonder how those numbers will actually hurt the box office and how you can then track it. Is it the kind of film that would then bring people back into a Netflix subscription who maybe have lapsed their subscription in favour of Paramount Plus or anything else? Probably not, I'll be honest, unless you're like a big fan of cinema. But then if that's the case, you would have seen it in the cinema in the first place. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of way to look at it. But for me anyway, I'm more than happy to have Rian Johnson back. I know there's going to be lots of people who really struggled with the character decisions and motivations that he did with some of The Last Jedi. And with distance, I can see that. But also at the same time, that film is definitely not without its merits.
One of the things he says, at the moment, we're in between making the next Benoit Blanc movie because they're making a trilogy for Netflix, as you know, and thinking about Poker Face. So he's got an ongoing series with Natasha Lyonne, I believe, in a sort of a female Columbo is the way it's being talked about. So like an old Mystery of the Week type show. I keep getting together with Kathy and having conversations. Who knows, making The Last Jedi was the best experience in my life, so I should be so lucky. So he's very aware that he had a great time making it. And the Hollywood Reporter asked a very pertinent, very good question. What did you learn from making The Last Jedi? He says, a big piece of it, which Ram taught me, was coming into every situation with studios, financiers, decision makers, and embracing them in the process. That served us well in the independent world, and with Bob Iger, Alan Horn, Alan Bergman, and Kathy Kennedy, and everybody at Lucasfilm, it was just a very respectful, joyful process. And his partner in crime, Ram Bergman, the producer, says, if you bring people into the process early, they're rooting for you and they eventually let you do what you want to do, which I thought was a very wise thing to say. In terms of what his involvement in future Star Wars could be, one of the problems that he had, and it's not a problem for him because the film made $1.3 billion and fans love it and it's part of a whole and it's out there forever now and it's not going to change, was more that Lucasfilm didn't have a through line for the three films.
Yeah.
And so they brought in an independent thinking filmmaker who made his Star Wars, which was exactly what they asked him to do. It's like criticising Hayden Christensen for playing Anakin the way he did when George is telling him how to play it. So the criticism of Rian Johnson is really unfair because they gave him the canvas to do exactly what he did with The Last Jedi. I still wish, as much as I actually do enjoy Rise of Skywalker, I do wish that had a totally different voice. That's why I wish Colin Trevorrow had made 9 instead of JJ. No criticism on JJ. JJ was always going to try and steer it back to what he would have done if he'd have done 8. It's a weird paradox. So I don't think the blame or the finger should be pointed at Rian Johnson. Because he's talked about Poker Face, he clearly likes that mystery story. Knives Out and Glass Onion are that. Maybe a TV show with that scope and a long-form storytelling option would be the best avenue for Rian to do a Star Wars story that you walk away from going, wow. Yeah. He brings his style. You're very familiar with his style, but, he brings that style to the TV show and just lavishes it on Star Wars, and we've got something that's really golden and not beholden to anything else other than the fact that it's got spaceships, lasers, lightsabers, and the classic Star Wars tropes.
Yeah, you're completely right with that. I think, and maybe that's what actually he needs is just to, as an auteur director, he needs the flexibility to be able to create the characters that he wants to create based on what they need to do and serve the story and how they need to serve it, rather than slotting into the trilogy that he did and having to deal with legacy characters and stuff and take them in different directions, but then at the same time not be checked back to pull them into something that may be a bit more consistent. I know we know and we've read the treatments and stuff, but you do wonder what the Colin Trevorrow Rise of Skywalker could have actually looked like once it'd gone through and been kind of sanitized and what have you. And actually having 3 completely different voices, whether or not it would have made it even more of a mess or somehow in some kind of like abstract chaos harmony, just make it all kind of work. It would be an interesting parallel universe to go and visit and see how that all fell into place in the end. I think the problem is that it doesn't matter what Rian does. There's obviously going to be the portion of fandom who, if he is given another Star Wars show, be it for Disney Plus or a film, their voices will be fairly loud until they see it. And that's obviously going to be a bumpy ride and it's going to put that production, whatever it is, on the back foot, which is a little bit unfair. Considering the criticism that Andor has unfairly received based on people who have not given it enough time to really experience it. Star Wars fans in general just need to just learn a little bit more patience. Well, I think that's all we have time for today, so thank you very much for listening to us. Mark, how can the good listeners get in touch if they want to send us a question, a thought or a theory, because we haven't had one for a while?
We have no thoughts or theories, we just talk nonsense. If you want to be a part of the action and stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news, visit panthertracks.com or visit the free...
Now, that's not exactly what I meant when I said that, but free!
Panther Tracks app through the App Store to follow us on your mobile device. You can reach out to us and send in your listeners' questions by emailing radio@panthertracks.com. We haven't had a listener's question for a while because we've been doing reaction chats for the most part, so get your questions in. We're back on track now with regular Making Tracks episodes on Tuesday, so get your questions in. We'll talk about anything. Comment, like and share on any of our social media feeds at Panther Tracks, and be sure to subscribe, leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher or smart speaker of choice. And as always, thanks to James Temple for composing the Panther Tracks intro, Adam O'Brien for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. Remember, tune into our Panther Tracks news show Good Morning Tatooine. It's live Sunday evenings at 9 o'clock UK, 4 p.m. Eastern, and 1 p.m. Pacific on Facebook and YouTube. And when we've got shows on, and the next time we'll do reaction chats will be for season 3 of Mando, and that'll be the same for Good Morning Tatooine. It'll be live on Thursday evenings for live episodes with Brian and guests. And check out our Panther Tracks Friday night rotation, 7 o'clock Friday evenings UK time, bringing you Phantom from Down Under, Desert Planet Discs, Planet Leia, Start Your Engines, Cannon Fodder, and Collecting Tracks, and special episodes of Making Tracks. And that's me done for this episode.
Wow, I've forgotten how much wordage that is. Brilliant. Thank you very much again for listening. Everybody stay safe, take care, and hopefully we will catch you at the next episode. Until then, may the Force be with you.
Coming up next on Panther Tracks Radio, it's another episode of Making Tracks.